Hey friends, I'm really excited about this month's topic, but before we dive in, I just want you to consider that you are only ever 5 steps away from a sustainable solution for any life situation when you approach it using the principles of a gap year mindset. And it is my hope that you'll come and visit us at thegapyeargirls.com to learn more and find out. Now, with that wonderful sponsor info out of the way, I'm your host Celeste, and you are listening to episode number 5, Your Relationship to Life Purpose. So, after researching and preparing for all of the ways that we're going to dive into this idea in our membership site for the Gap Year Girls, it's become pretty obvious to me that there are empowering ways and there are more disempowering ways to think about this idea of having a life purpose. So in this podcast, I want to help make a clearer distinction between these two so that you can identify what yours presently is, and then with that awareness, be supported with ideas and tools to walk away feeling more confident, like, yes, I can step into this upcoming year and really new decade so much more clear on what having a life purpose means to me so that I can make empowering choices for my life that align with that understanding. Are you ready? Awesome, let's dive in. So how do you define a life purpose? That's probably a good place to start, right? Maybe your definition of a life purpose is the supreme highest destiny for your life. Or it could be being dedicated to whatever you're most passionate about doing at any given point in time. For me, I like to define a life purpose as simply the path I choose when I am being my most authentic self. It can seem like such a vague or intangible concept, but we make it more tangible through creating our own definition of it. So I'm curious, what are your stories about having a life purpose, and what does that mean to you? You get to decide whether your life purpose is something out there to discover or something that is understandable now to you at this exact moment. I'm sure you've probably seen a BuzzFeed article headline promising you something like the idea that you can take their quiz and discover what your life purpose is in just 3 easy steps. Or maybe you've seen an inspiring TED Talk or a motivational speaker share about what it means to live your life purpose according to their point of view. Maybe you're into astrology, and so you're turning to your chart to interpret what your life purpose is. I want you to notice the subtlety of approaching this question from the perspective of searching out there for undisclosed pieces of information and outside insight of who you are in order to feel confident and self-assured about who you should be and what you should do with the time you have here on Earth. Why would someone believe that their answers to those questions are out there? Well, in my own personal experience, I remember the first time I bumped up against Western astrology, and I felt this immediate pull towards wanting to know what these other astrologers claim to be able to tell me about myself and my destiny through interpreting the information of my chart. I've seen it claimed with schools of astrology that the purpose of your life is written in the stars. And if you're someone who doesn't know how to read the language of the cosmos, it can feel like someone else holds hidden answers about who you really are that you are going to be incomplete without. When people put something like astrology on a pedestal like this, it perpetuates this idea that somebody else outside of yourself knows something about you that you don't already on some level know about yourself, and has people doubting the validity of trusting their own experience. When we doubt our own senses as a trustworthy source of insight into who we are, then we continue to search out for messages and advice and opinions of others who, let's be real, are only able to speak from a place of authority on the matter because they've been studying themselves and are sharing insights from personal experiences. My point is, you don't need to speak the language of astrology fluently in order to one day hopefully see your life purpose disclosed to you. Astrology, just like any other personal development tool or modality, is offering a way to be more focused in your approach to studying yourself, and can therefore more easily help you recognize your own desires for what you want your life to be about. The rabbit hole I can see people getting into with something like astrology or self-development work in general is that because of the nature that what we can learn through studying the stars and ourselves is inherently infinite, we can get trapped and tormented by this idea that we will never truly know the full picture of our life, and therefore never fully know our life purpose. So we discredit the validity of who we are and what we know by labeling it as incomplete. And yeah, it's a valid perspective, but my question is it empowering? Here's the alternative that I see, and that I've come to adopt through my own experience of asking the question over and over again: does it serve me to choose this perspective? And is there a more empowering story that I can tell in this situation? From this point of view, defining my life purpose comes as the result of my increasing self-awareness and what I know to be true from direct experience, and is then acted upon by making the conscious choice to use self-sourced information to guide the decisions I make and the direction I take my life moving forward. When it comes to exploring who I am through something like astrology, for example, discovering that my sun sign is in Taurus is purely an invitation to explore the qualities of that symbol within the context of my own chart and help to give me a more focused direction to self-reflect with in order to add this greater level of dimensionality to the way that I view who I know myself to be. That way, I'm not seeking validation or outside answers from others, and instead I'm continuing to affirm that I am the expert on myself, who can use these different modalities for self-reflection as tools to deepen my own inquiry and understanding of who I've been, who I am now, and who I can choose to be moving forward. Which leads me to this next idea about life purpose, which is whether you believe that having a life purpose is chosen for you or chosen by you. Feel into this one for a moment. I want you to take a guess at which one is more personally empowering. If you guessed that choosing your own life purpose is more empowering than having some external force or system of culture, society, or religious conditioning assign it to you, then you would be right. But why do you think that is? This helps to deepen our understanding. One of these ideas has you give your power away to others when you believe you don't have a choice, that your desires are wrong or invalidated if they go against the will of a greater power outside of you, be it the will of society, the will of your culture, or the will of a supreme being. And that because of this, it is not your responsibility to decide what is ultimately made of your life because the external world has already decided who you are, what you should do, and where you're going to end up. Now, the other empowers you to believe that you have a choice, that your opinions and desires for what you want that choice to be matter, and that ultimately it is your responsibility to create your life and make decisions that are reflective of what is most authentic for you, based on your own present understanding of what that is. Juxtaposed together like this, it seems pretty obvious how limiting one perspective is and how liberating another one is, right? Up until the last decade or two, there was no widespread access to the internet, and the options that you had for the lenses you viewed the world through were pretty contained within your family and maybe the local newspaper or religious and political figures in your small community, and that was kind of it. But this is 2019, and more than any other time in history, we now have the technology and opportunity to hear the stories of literally billions of people who are offering billions of perspectives about how to see the world and make sense of their own place within it. So why in anyone's right mind would someone choose to believe a perspective that gives all of their power away and abdicates full responsibility for the meaning and outcome of their life? Well, the way that I see it, it always comes down to fear. How conditioned have we become to fear the version of ourselves that we would be if we truly reclaimed our power? What seemingly bad things might happen if we actually took full responsibility for our lives and started expressing ourselves unapologetically? First of all, we'd likely upset anybody else who's convinced themselves that they don't have the power or an ability to change. We also might receive pushback from people we care about because they won't recognize the version of us that no longer puts pleasing people, censoring our truth, or apologizing for our existence ahead of being true to ourselves. The transformation we experience through the reclamation of our own personal power is the result of walking through that fire of criticism and scrutiny from others as they are reflecting back to us the insecurity and limiting beliefs we are in the process of letting go within ourselves. Can you do this? Absolutely. And living an authentic life depends on it. If you have those lingering questions about what the purpose of your life is, this is your invitation, my friend, to take responsibility for finding your answers. I see it as one of my greatest privileges to embody the possibility of viewing our life purpose as something completely chosen by us, and that our direct life experiences are enough to inform the most meaningful, expansive, and impactful decisions that we can make for ourselves moving forward. The final thing I want to address before we wrap up together today is distinguishing between seeing the idea of a life purpose as something that is fixed or something that is fluid. If you're still with me, then you're starting to get the hang of tuning into an idea and how it feels for you to see if it's an empowering perspective to choose or a disempowering one. So go ahead, I'll give you a second to decide for yourself. What feels more empowering, to believe that your life purpose is fixed or something that is fluid? For me, fluid is certainly the answer, because what comes to mind when you think about being fixed? I think of things that are rigid, unchangeable, locked in. And this conjures up an image for me of being like locked into a contract or something. And I don't know about you, but imagining my life purpose like being locked into a contract I didn't choose, that can and will never change, makes me feel kind of helpless and trapped. But the traditional mindset that's guided society's expectations for becoming an adult certainly reflects this kind of fixed thinking. Our get good grades, go to a good school, pick your major, start your career, and retire 50 years later mentality certainly puts so much pressure on 18 to 25-year-olds to know what they want for the rest of their life and then set it in stone and work really hard on that path until they eventually just get old and call it a day. So what is the alternative? In my experience, it's choosing a perspective where you relate to your life purpose as something that is fluid. Fluid for me has me imagine words like flexible and evolving and flowing. It conjures this image for me of like a kaleidoscope, constantly shifting colors and changing patterns, yet always a complete work of art in any given moment of its ongoing transformation. When you see your life purpose as fluid, you guide yourself forward with curiosity by asking a question like, what do I get excited about these days, and how can I give more of my energy to that? I can connect with whatever answer is most resonant for me in the moment that I ask the question, and use that information to make the decision that I'm faced with now, while also being free to change my mind in the future if I were to re-examine my choices and discover that my answer had changed. For example, I used to feel like my life purpose was going to be doing conservation work to help endangered wildlife, restore degraded ecosystems and habitats, and raise awareness about the impacts of larger corporations on our environment. For several years, that guided me down this path of choosing to do conservation projects, working with wildlife in both South Africa and Peru. It guided me to join the honors program at UCSB to study environmental science in hopes that I could use what I was learning towards fulfilling and expanding into that purpose that was most resonating with me at the time. But along that journey and along my path of self-inquiry, I learned new things that expanded my perspective on what I thought was the problem I wanted to help, and I gained insight into deeper aspects of what I felt was the root cause of what I really wanted to dedicate my life addressing. That insight was into the inextricable link between human suffering and environmental suffering. Because if you're in pain or you're living in fear, all of your attention's going to be focused on yourself and the simple act of just trying to survive by any means necessary. There isn't an ability to think differently or long-term about the impact of your actions on others or your community, and certainly not the habitats of wildlife and larger ecosystems. When we don't think we have enough or that we are enough, then we take in order to fill that empty hole that we're feeling inside. We take from a place of scarcity, and this level of taking without feeling ever satisfied to the point where we give back to the others or we give back to the land has on a global scale created a massive imbalance that is now demanding to be restored. The fate of humanity as we know it depends on this, but it is my belief from my own experiences that this imbalance starts within the hearts and the minds of individual people. And healing the world starts with empowering individuals to see themselves from a place of wholeness. Once balance gets restored within you, this allows there to be a foundation upon which you can now confidently direct your attention outside of yourself to ask empowering questions like, what does the world need? And how can I be of service? What I want you to walk away from today is this: wandering and meandering along in your life without any sense of clear direction, or feeling trapped in a life purpose, a career path, a relationship, or a gender role that feels assigned to you rather than chosen by you, in this day and age is completely unnecessary. When you take full responsibility for becoming the expert on yourself, discovering what you truly desire, and aligning your life choices to authentically reflect that, you are without a doubt living whatever you might define as your life purpose. Now, if you're looking for answers, if you're wanting more clarity about the current situation you find yourself in, if you're seeking a deeper understanding of yourself and the best decisions you can be making to take you in the direction of your dreams, you are in the right place, because that's exactly what our Intentional Gap Year workshop helps women who want to become self-empowered to do. This is a completely online program that's been created to be your personal space to deep dive into yourself and emerge onto the other side with a clear vision for where you want to go, and most importantly, the integrated understanding that you are your greatest guide to getting yourself there. So if you're listening to this and you've been facing intimidating unknowns in your life, like, why don't I feel fulfilled by the supposed dream job that I landed after graduation? Or you're feeling stuck trying to decide whether to stay or leave your present relationship. Or you're wondering, how do I make a plan to move out of my parents' house and start thriving as a young adult? Then do yourself a favor and head on over to our website at thegapyeargirls.com, and we will be waiting there with the tools and support for you to find your own answers and be welcomed into the most empowered version of yourself. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm curious to know, what is your personal definition of a life purpose, and how has it changed over time? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below and leave a review for this podcast to keep the empowering tips coming. I read every single one, and I look forward to hearing from you and having you join us at thegapyeargirls.com. Bye-bye.